This is Entrepreneurs Get Visible, the podcast for people who want more impact, influence, and income. I'm Anna Parker-Naples, and I'll be sharing with you proven methods from leading entrepreneurs that help you get visible as an authority in your field. Because anything's possible when you get visible. I'm recording this episode on the Monday after 2 days at the podcast show in London, which is Europe's biggest podcasting conference, podcasting event, loads of inspiring talks about podcasting from all avenues, not just business focus, which is predominantly what I'm helping to support people to do. And in the evening, we were lucky enough to get tickets to see Fearne Cotton's live show of her podcast, Happy Place. And she was interviewing Sara Cox, who I've grown up listening to Sara. I've seen Fearne many times and listened to her on the radio. And it was really interesting to watch these very accomplished women have a very frank and open conversation about their own vulnerability, the things where they lack confidence, the curveballs that have happened in their careers that have made them slightly more cautious or feel that they're not good enough. And I want in this episode to share with you some of the lightbulb moments that have happened for me as a result of watching this really intimate live show experience and hearing and feeling the knock-on effect, not just for myself and my team who were with me, but in the room, the effect of having these open conversations and what it's then inspiring me to go away and think about. So hint, hint, the real intention is for you to go away and think about this as well. So often, and particularly bear in mind that this show is predominantly at heart about putting yourself out there, getting more visible so that you can be known as great at what you do. So often when we see someone who we consider successful, we think that they have it all. We think that they've got the great life, that they have had it easy, that they've had all of the opportunities. And we can see, particularly in social media, we can see and then believe that because we're being shown their best face, the face with the makeup on, the face with the outfit on, the shiny bits of their life, that they have it sorted. And actually what's the most interesting thing about people is when you hear about the cracks beneath the surface. And that for me is real visibility. That for me is when we hear the rawness of their journey, their moments where they struggle with feeling fraudulent. They are aware that they have some level of feeling that they're not quite good enough, that they haven't got the results they want, or they're not who they appear to be to the outside world. And this mismatch, how that mismatch between public perception and who you really are and what you really stand for, how uncomfortable that disparity can be. What really struck me as I listened and watched these two very accomplished, intelligent, confident women, and quite beautiful women as well, is how self-deprecating they both were, albeit through a lens of wanting to show others that nothing comes easy. You have to make decisions over and over again. And it got me thinking about, what am I really doing with this podcast in particular? I've been doing this podcast now for 2.5 years, and I had my previous show for 1.5 years, nearly 2 years as well, which was, you can't find it anymore. It was Inspiring Mummy Club, and then it was Inspiring Success Podcast. And then, of course, I have my other main show, which is all about the nitty-gritty of podcasting, which, as you can imagine, ties in very nicely with a lot of our products and services that we have inside the podcast agency. But what am I doing over here? And I want to flag up for you that I think this is really common as you go through a period of growth, potentially a feeling of some kind of rebirth or growth or personal development or self-improvement or whatever words work for you, that you can feel as though you have outgrown where you were before. And what happened for me sitting in that live podcast show was a realization that in using this podcast as a very effective tool to drive more business, to make connections, and to share some of the behind the scenes stuff with you guys, the listeners, that in some ways I haven't been as open and honest as I originally intended to be. And I'm not sure how it's going to pan out, but I've realised that actually me telling you about when I find things incredibly challenging, when I am not my confident self, some of the thoughts going on behind the scenes, some of the impact of running my business that it has on my family, that it has on my children, that it has on my relationship, actually might be some of the most useful content that I could put out there. Now, even as I say that, I slightly want to be sick at the idea of letting you into much more of my life, because I'm aware, like many people building a profile, that I have, that there is almost a wall, and I let you into some of it, but not all of it. And some of that is to protect myself. Some of that is to protect my family and their sense of privacy. But when I think long and hard about why, particularly on this show, why I'm really doing it, why I really wrote my first book, Get Visible, it was to show that wherever you're at, it's okay, that we're not all polished, that we're perfect just the way we are, and that actually the word perfect is unnecessary. So I'm just putting that out there, that if you know in your content, in your online presence, on stage when you talk, that you're only showing the armoured up, suited and booted powerhouse version of yourself, and you have a desire to inspire people, that maybe by letting them see those chinks in the armour, maybe by removing the armour altogether and letting people see who you really are, might be a more effective way, a more heartfelt way to make a difference to the people who are listening. It's definitely given me food for thought about the direction of my business. And one of the reasons for that, and I will probably do a much deeper episode on that, is that as we grow the podcasting business now, I have intentions that I will grow it not as my own personal brand. Everything I've done up to date in the last 3 or 4 years has been under Anna Parker-Naples Limited, very much riding the wave with me as the face of that brand. But as I grow and evolve and pivot my focus, that's no longer necessarily going to be the best way for me to grow and scale the business. And that's partly because if you followed my journey, you know that I'm writing a World War II novel, that I fully intend to immerse myself in that whole world of being a novelist and a writer and speaking about writing. And that for me is going to sit alongside my audio work. But when I've built a brand very much on my personal brand, what has to happen in order to line that up? So in terms of this show really had the intention of not only sharing my knowledge and my expertise, but reaching you in a very different way to motivate and activate you to take action. And I think somewhere along the way, I have forgotten that that's why I started. So I don't know when they're going to happen. I don't know how it's going to happen. But there are going to be some changes around here. And they might be really subtle. It might just be that I let you see a few more of those cracks. It might be more dramatic. I don't know. I'm going to allow myself to percolate this over the summer period. The question I want to pose to you is, in your desire, your struggle, your effort, your hustle to be available and seen by your potential clients, how much are you actually letting them see you? How honest are you really being? Have you fallen into the trap of creating content, creating posts, creating podcasts that are pretty much the same as what everybody else is doing? And what would happen if you showed a little bit more of yourself? What would happen if everything you did came from the heart? that's me for today. It really did touch me. And actually, do you know what? I will now be quite an avid fan of Fearne Cotton's podcast, The Happy Place. I hadn't listened before, but there was something about her raw honesty that I think we all need a little bit more of in our life. And so, yeah, I expect to hear a little bit more about what goes on at home for me, potentially. Always being mindful to protect the privacy of those around me. If this has given you food for thought, then I'd love you to reach out, because I always love it if someone Instagram direct messages me or sends me a voice note to tell me that they listened to the particular episode and flag up for me that this one was all about heartfelt content. Actually, I said that with my strong Leighton Buzzard accent with no T's in the middle, heartfelt content. Then flag that up for me and let me know. Do you know that you're still secretly hiding despite putting yourself out there and being visible? Because I don't feel like I've shown up as myself for a little while, and I'm about to do it.
Thank you for listening to Entrepreneurs Get Visible. To get your free checklist on how to raise your profile and to find out about our community, go to annaparkernaples.co.uk/get visible.